Hello again, and thanks for joining us this beautiful day, talking about Wedge Network Security Suite. Wedge Network Security Suite is the actual security services that you can activate and enable if you had a WedgeOS installation. Now, to remind you of WedgeOS and its features, I'm going to first of all talk about the applicability of WedgeOS and our solutions and network security suites here. In a nutshell, we have built into the Wedge solutions several anti-malware and anti-spam and whatever have you services that you can license when you have WedgeOS. They would extend from your typical anti-malware for viruses to spam, for data loss prevention to protect against your data being lost either from your mobile device or from your servers. And then also to other things protecting your actual infrastructure, such as server security, advanced threats, and so on. Our solutions have been deployed, WedgeOS and security suites have been deployed in the following industry segments, and we continuously look forward to expanding the footprint of our products and technologies, and in so doing, basically tailoring them even further. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about here very shortly is how can we enable these security services. In a previous presentation about WedgeOS, we talked about the different services. We talked about the open service bus. We talked about the different engines we have and the fact that these services can plug in. And in addition to that, we talked about our current partners, which can be extended depending on your locale or your application, and the fact that WedgeOS is built to accommodate malware signatures or threat intelligence from different providers out there. Now, in the following slide, I'm going to speak to you about each of the services one by one. So the very first service that we got a lot of our customers requiring and requesting is anti-malware. How can you protect your end devices against the vicious, wild web out there? You have lots of malware coming in, and here you're with your very innocent mobile device, whether it's an Android device or iPhone or BlackBerry, whatever have you, and you want to be protected. And so typically the way it will work is that you'd have subscribed to the Wedge service, whether it's through your operator or your company has bought one of the WedgeOS appliances or whatever have you, and now we are in line to be able to scan the content. Our anti-malware engine basically would scan the content so that you are not vulnerable at all. It will block any kind of malware before it reaches you. And we have, in our product, we have some of the best anti-malware signatures out there and anti-malware engines out there. We have basically, one of our partners is Kaspersky, which gives us the most accurate and up-to-date detection and blocking of network attacks. We have other anti-malware providers in our product as well. But the most important thing is the following. We can support more than one signature provider. We can support, for example, Kaspersky, Bitdefender, and McAfee at the same time, all of them running in tandem. And in addition to that, when we basically work with the signatures, we don't work with the typical what's called as the stream signatures, which are signatures that are limited. We actually work with the full database. So in our product, we have seen customers who requested more than one provider, so Kaspersky and others, and in this case we can have actually up to 60 million signatures at the same time. But a lot of people basically tell you that signatures are not sufficient, and we agree with them. So in addition to that, we also have a heuristic module, and we also have the sandboxing technology, allowing us to detect whether the content has anomalies. So if, for example, you have your typical PDF file or your Word file or PowerPoint file, then these files should basically contain nothing more than just graphics or text. They should not contain commands to disable part of your registry or part of your system services. If we are to find those, then basically our heuristics module would immediately detect that and would say this is probably a zero-day attack and would block the content. In addition to that, we have insisted that whenever we work with a partner of ours on the malware signatures, that they have been AV test certified, VB certified, and so on. And as a result of that, security computing has given our product good ranking there. The most important thing before I leave this is to show you that we actually do recognize, because our appliances or our solutions are deployed either in the cloud or deployed in networks, we can make no assumption about the devices accessing the content. So our signatures are all signatures would protect against the whole gamut of available devices. So with support, would scan for PC attacks, Android attacks, iOS attacks, and whatever have you. The next security function that we get a lot, actually, in fact, a lot of our customers would require both. The anti-malware is the second one, the anti-spam. Now, typically, spam solutions out there are NTA based. They're designed to protect against a certain main infrastructure, and that's it. How about network spam? How about spam that's crossing your network? How about basically you have a device that has been compromised that's sending out spam from your network? Would you find a solution? Well, WedgeOS does exactly that. We scan for spam, we scan for all types of SMTP traffic at a network basis, allowing us to start enforcing the anti-spam solution we have. For the anti-spam solution we have deployed, and the one that we have implemented in a lot of operators out there, is the CloudMark anti-spam engine. Typically, when it comes to spam scanning, there are two types of scanning. The first one is what we call as the heuristic scanning, based on Bayesian networks, based on some form of, think of it, some form of artificial intelligence, where you try to understand the actual content, and if you see an anomaly, you basically say that this is potentially spam. That's one form of scanning for spam. The other one that we prefer is the one that has fingerprinting, where basically you would have subscribers out there submitting content, and once the content is submitted to this whole large network, you go in and fingerprint pieces of the content to ensure that if you see a similar piece, it's not spamming. Result of which is that you get the most accurate detection and with no false positives. So working with CloudMark, we have now access to the world's largest messaging intelligence network. It stops blended attacks, and in addition to that, it's completely transparent. It's not MTA, as a result of which we can scan any type of mail traffic that's going in or coming out of your network for spam. So if you had a compromised machine, we can detect that. Other solutions out there which are MTA based would not, because they are very specific. Think of it as a point solution to your mail infrastructure. Data loss prevention is where you try to prevent data that matters to you from leaving your devices or leaving your enterprise without your control. Typically, the way data loss prevention is provided in the industry right now is through a very rigorous exercise of going through your databases, your file servers, and so on, and fingerprinting them or classifying them into different types, and then coming up with what we call as the X-axis matrix, where you find the type of user, and if this user is trying to access this type of file, he or she is allowed or not. Now, in our case, data loss is much simpler than that. Data loss in our case means that files that have been watermarked, for example, with this confidential sign there, should not leave the network. And once we have this kind of scanning, we're able to do so. But to do so, we had to introduce two aspects in our technology. The first one, which we spoke about earlier on, which is the actual advanced document text extraction engine. That's the deep content. Deep content engine, or deep content engine, allows us to scan, to track the content out of the network and assemble it the same way that your endpoint is going to see it. So now that we have the actual files, the second thing is how can we scan in the files to prevent these files from leaving. So if the file, for example, is watermarked confidential, then we're looking for this pattern confidential. If you have a file that has Visa cards, for example, we have to be able to detect that these are Visa card numbers. If you have social security numbers, the same way. So how do we do that? Well, we had to build a high-performance pattern matching engine that allows us to scan inside the files to ensure that content is stopped before it leaves if it matches the pattern that you are interested in. So how do we do that? This is how we do it. First of all, content is extracted. That's the deep content inspection engine. That's what we do. Then it goes through this high-performance pattern matching engine, which is actually ours. And from there, we go in and see if the pattern matches. So for example, if there is a word confidential, and you have basically specified the word confidential, any file with the word confidential should not leave the network, we'll detect it. It could be as simple as a file type. For example, if you have a mobile device, you don't want, that latest app you have downloaded from the Android store, from the Apple store, to steal your address book. So usually address books are in what's called as .vcf format. So we'll scan for those .vcf formats, ensuring that you would not leave your device. In addition to that, if it's, for example, something as simple as your social security number, there is an algorithm behind it. The numbers on your social security number are just not haphazardly generated. There is an algorithm there. So we'll run the algorithm, ensuring that we don't leave it doesn't leave your network. Now, the most important thing, if you're in IT and if you've built algorithms before, the scanning is very intensive, because we're literally going through, gigabytes in some cases of file, the same file or pieces of file. We want to make sure that scanning doesn't take a long time. So we had to introduce what we call as parametric scanning. Think of it as a two-phase scanning. We start basically with the document, and we do a very quick sweep across the document. If we don't see any kind of matches, then immediately the file is okay and goes out. But if we start seeing potential matches, that's where we delve in depth and do so. By the way, this solution has also a use case that I like a lot, and it's close and dear to my heart. As you know, a lot of our veterans go out there to protect our countries, and when they come back, sometimes they are victims of identity theft and so on. So this product was deployed in a government institution, and we have discovered very quickly the importance of this technology, because it could stop veteran information being lost out there. So there you go. It's the fastest engine out there. We support hundreds of file formats, so whatever file formats are available. It's very high accuracy with this two-stage scan. It doesn't introduce noticeable latency because of its parametric scanning approach. In addition to that, we have built-in compliance support, so we can support out-of-the-box scanning for things such as social security numbers, social insurance numbers, and so on. And finally, we continue to extend this engine as we work with our partners. I'm going to take you through one of the very popular modules that we get a lot of requests for, which is the web filtering module. Web filtering simply means that if you are part of the marketing department, you're allowed access to these types of websites, but if you're part of engineering, you're not, and vice versa. And web filtering usually depends on the following components. You have to monitor the websites out there, you have to analyze the websites, and in addition to that, you basically have to store the typical websites in the database. So web filtering, in a nutshell, depends on having a database of URLs, of IP addresses, of domains, and so on, of content that is objectionable, classified according to category. Out of the box, our product comes in with the McAfee trusted source web filtering engine, but we actually have added some other engines as needed to our deployments. The good thing about our solution, working with our content providers such as McAfee and so on, is that we have a very comprehensive web classification database. In the case of McAfee, because it's reviewed by humans, it has zero false positives, and also because of the deep content inspection and the WedgeOS capabilities, where we can be deployed transparently or to be deployed asymmetrically and so on, we can provide web filtering for very large operator deployments, whether it's telcos or service providers, whatever have you. And finally, just to give you an idea of how it looks like, basically, I don't know if this shows clearly or not, but on the left-hand side, you can have all the typical categories, and you can basically select and choose depending on the policy there. Now, another important service in our product is the education security. Our kids go to school, and Google now is everywhere. And guess what? Our kids are typically very tech savvy. In fact, they're typically more tech savvy than their parents, right? It's just a fact of life. But as Jen Levitz, the FTC chairman, said it, in this era of rapid technological change, kids are often tech savvy but judgment poor. And I would like to add to that, and usually more tech savvy than their parents. And they find every possible way to go around, security measures. So in our education security solution, we actually work very closely with the search engines out there to prevent objectionable content going there. So the way we do it is, if content is issued, assuming that even the child managed to find a way to circumvent the school's typical proxy, we will actually still rewrite the URL. And we would rewrite the URL such that it will have the search term, so that the search engines would get the safe search to the kids out there. And we support the typical safe search features of Google, of Bing, of Yahoo, and whatever is available out there. Now, because we're also in line and inspecting all the traffic, and we're not a proxy, it literally is a foolproof solution. So we'll actually be able to see, even if the child managed to find, some site out there that he can proxy to or she can proxy to avoid, the typical proxy solutions, we will still find that and we'll still rewrite the URL, ensuring that it's a foolproof solution and it's available there. In addition to that, because we have everything at a network layer, and the solution is deployed from a single point, other solutions out there that rely on the endpoint and having to go in and install some piece of code or do configuration in each of the kids' devices, that's not the case here. It's a central location, that's the WedgeOS, and gives you significant cost savings. Now, one of the last features we have here in this presentation is the application control, where we are able to control the type of applications. So, for example, you can have a medical installation, and you can be through mobile devices, whatever have you. As long as you have a WedgeOS appliance in line with the network, we can now go in and provide policies to block things such as online games or chat and messaging, P2P traffic, and streaming media content. So as a result of which, you as an administrator or as an enterprise or as a subscriber are in control of providing this kind of blocking if needed. Now, WedgeOS as a network security services platform can be deployed to protect both end users as well as servers. So if you are a typical enterprise, you probably started with a web service, and then you added a voice, your own in-house PBX, and then your network became so complicated. I mean, like, you have lots and lots of devices and so on. Now, how do you protect against it? Well, all you have to do is put a WedgeOS appliance or a cloud service at the gateway of your network. And from there, you can go in and block attacks against your web infrastructure, your voice over IP service, or against other network applications. And the typical services we have there are things such as denial of service attack, preventing someone trying to put your services into a crawl or pulling down your website or web service. SQL attacks, which typically would try to infect your or crash your SQL servers, as well as voice over IP, because we are seeing now a lot of voice over IP attacks happening, and their main goal is to cripple or to pull down your PBX, which is your typical infrastructure for voice. And when that happens, then you have no communication with the outside world. Finally, critical infrastructure is something we see a lot of, and we see that if you're an oil and gas company, for example, you can be having a lot of PLC controllers controlling your production lines, your boilers, whatever have you. And with our critical infrastructure module, we're able to protect against non-vulnerabilities for PLCs and SCADA software. And by the way, there is also on our website further webinars to that. Thank you for spending this time attending our presentation and understanding about the WedgeOS network security services we have. We're continuously expanding our security service profile. To be in touch with us or to know more about what we have, please feel free to contact us using the information listed below. Thank you.